There have been many mainline Pokemon entries over the years, with my favourite being what's on screen now, Pokemon Emerald. But for every mainline entry there has been, there are so many more ROM hacks. Oh my goodness, it's like opening Pandora's box. I had not really dived too deep into this in my life before, until literally like this week, and I am shocked that there's so many. So let's just take a look at a few today that are weird, wonderful, or just a bit terrifying. Let's just see how it goes. Oh, any game with that thing on the start screen is bound to be cursed.
I love little girls, they make me feel so good.
This is Pokémon Uncensored Edition, probably one of the most famous ROM hacks out there purely just for being so ridiculous, so rude, and just so, well, it is funny, but just so cursed. Uncensored Edition has now been around for nearly a decade, which to me is just insane. It features nearly 500 Pokemon, including some new ones, although I say new ones, they're kinda cursed. The graphics are pretty good, there's new moves and movesets, there's 2 regions for exploring, it's a pretty good time. I can't really show too much of it because there's a lot of nudity that would immediately get me banned from YouTube, so moving on.
What I did without choice.
I know.
Okay, so next up we have Pokémon Coral version, which takes you to the Onwa region, far away from Kanto and Johto. It's set out to recreate the feeling of gold, silver and crystal, and by the looks of things, it's done it very well. Now, as far as I know, there's not a full release for this game yet. There was a demo that takes you up to about the 4th gym, released at the end of last year, and there's been a patch since then, but nothing on whether or not it is complete. Okay, so some of the features of this ROM hack, they're very impressive. It's 60 FPS, which, you know, we don't get very often in Pokemon these days, especially on the Switch. It's an entirely new region, it's challenging, and it has generations all the way up to Gen 7 from Sun and Moon. I always find it really cool in these games where new Pokemon get the old style sprites developed for them. It just looks so cool. There's also a rideable skateboard with unique mechanics and a jump. A jump in Pokemon, you know, you gotta love it really. That in itself is worth playing the game for, I'd say. Coral version functions the same way really as the other Pokemon games do. You fight your way through 8 gyms, you work your way towards the Pokemon League, the Elite Four, and then the Champion. And there's also an evil team. So all in all, it's very much the classic experience of Pokemon, done very well. Okay, so this is Pokémon Fire Ash. Immediately this just makes me think of how sassy Ash was in the old anime.
But you see, this camera is my life. Get yourself a new life.
This game is just absolutely massive. It's insane. This has been in the works since 2015 and is still receiving updates this year. The game, as you probably guessed, takes you across the whole story of the anime of Ash Ketchum. Right from the beginning where he gets Pikachu, all the way up now until the Galar region where he becomes the Grand Champion. Which is just, it's insane. This is one of the games on this list that I've spent the most time with. I played this all the way up to Gen 3, and I do intend to go back to it at some point soon. This game features all the regions that Ash has been to in the show, and the Orange Island. There's over 50 gym battles. You get to battle his travelling companions, his rivals, there's Mega Evolutions, Alolan forms, Z-moves, Dynamaxes, and the Ash Greninja is in the game as well. Pikachu will always follow on top of you, and the graphics have been taken from Gen 3. Don't get me wrong, the game is not perfect by any sense of the imagination, but the sheer scale and the length of time put into this is just, it's fantastic. It's so impressive. There's certain plot points from the show which are kind of just glossed over or really quickly rushed through, and there's certain encounters which, due to the limitations of the game, just aren't quite as epic as they would have been in the show, but all in all, I would really recommend checking this one out. If you have a lot of free time, that is.
Bugs are one of the 3 most disgusting things in the world! Aside from you, what are the other disgusting things?
Okay, so sticking with the theme of ROM hacks based off of other parts of Pokemon, this is Pokemon Adventures Red Chapter, which is based off of the Adventures manga. Now, the manga is absolutely fantastic, and I've actually only just started reading it this year. It's a lot darker than the main series in the games. I can think of a fair few fairly dark moments, which I won't spoil if you do want to read it, but I'm sure you can picture the kind of things I'm talking about. Not like insanely dark, but like compared to what we're used to from the games, definitely so. Now, this game covers all the chapters and side chapters for Red's arc in the manga, which is, there's a lot there, so it's very impressive that again this has been covered. Not quite as long as all of Ash's from the series, but still very impressive. Interestingly, the level cap in this game is 255 as compared to the normal level 100, which is quite interesting. I would dread to be like a Caterpie in the grass at like level 3 and you're walking back and then you've got like a level 255 Mewtwo or something ridiculous on you. It'd be stupid. Anyway, this project began all the way back in 2013 and received its final update in October 2020, and the developer is working on a Volume 2, so go check it out. Okay, so we're heading down a slightly creepier path for just a couple of games. This is Pokémon Stigma version, not to be confused with Sigma.
Look at you! Look at the Sigmas you've become!
This is a game that takes place in the Kanto region, where you start out in Lavender Town, hence the creepy music. A mysterious figure in Pokémon Tower has caused a virus that turns trainers and Pokémon basically into zombies, where it will be up to you to save the whole of the Kanto region and de-zombify as many people as you can. This ROM hack entered development in 2013 and finally released in late 2019, with a patch following early 2020. It features a whole new story which, as I'm sure you can guess, is based on creepypastas and fan theories, and the famous glitches like missing no. It features Pokemon from the first 5 generations of the games, there's custom sprites and maps, which is really cool, and characters from other games appear such as May, Dawn, and so on and so forth. My favourite part about this is the custom Pokemon zombie sprites. Those things are just sick, they're so cool. The game is 100% completed, so I would advise you guys go check this one out because it's so cool. It's such a nice, fresh take on Pokemon. Well, I say nice, it's not a nice take, but it's a fresh take on Pokemon, and it's an interesting game to play through for sure. Okay, so sticking with the haunted theme just a little bit longer, this is Pokémon Black. Not to be confused with the DS games Pokémon Black and White, this is Pokémon Black based off of a creepypasta about a cursed game. Now, you can use the Ghost, which is the same sprite as the ghosts in Pokémon Tower. The only move this thing knows is Curse, and it's very heavily implied in the game that every time you use Curse on a Pokémon or trainer, you kill it. Simple as. And it's the haunting tale of, well, your murder spree essentially if you choose to do so. I won't spoil the story too much, but I advise you go and read it or just play the game. Either way, it's the same result. It's creepy, it's a really cool idea and concept, not one to sit and play alone at night, especially with the Lavender Town music that's still playing. Creeps me out every time. This ROM hack released in 2021 and was last updated early 2022. It is a complete game, and is definitely a good tool to scare your friends with, so enjoy. Right, well, I hope you're all feeling hungry, because next up we have Pokémon Sweet. Okay, so this game is essentially what if Kanto in Generation 1 was turned into Candyland and the Pokémon were all turned into desserts. That's it, I'm not joking, that's it. This is one of the older and more well-known ROM hacks out there, but it's still very cool nonetheless. There's 151 Poke-Sweets, not Pokemon, to capture, and instead of a Pokédex you have a cookbook that you fill up. And although there are 151 candified Pokemon, not all of them are based off of Gen 1, they're actually all based between Gen 1 through till 6, which is very cool. The story kind of follows the same as most Pokemon games, but it's kind of cool because there's a whole new type chart. You have 3 rivals, there's plenty of new music, and the ability to rematch the gym leaders anytime you want, which is very cool and something that the Pokemon games themselves should implement.
Pudding!
Okay, so that takes us to the end of our brief journey through Pokemon ROM hacks today. There was another game I was looking at to do with the Reggies, but unfortunately the game was only available in Spanish, and after playing for about half an hour, I realised my grasp of the Spanish language was maybe not quite as good as I'd previously thought, and having to sit there with Google Translate for every single line of text was not really the ideal and most efficient way to play a video game. So, hey, at least I tried. Anyway, I'd love to delve more into these ROM hacks for a part 2. Let me know what you think of these games and if you've played any, if you'd recommend any, I'd love to hear it. But as always, thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, tap the bell for notifications, like the video, all the usual stuff, as it always helps. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.
A stampede! I think there's a fungus.
And they're among us!